Hi guys, welcome to Kerbal Space Program with Nitro. This is In-Depth Tutorial Episode 3 on the Vehicle Assembly Building. So today I'm going to show you guys how to build this spacecraft, get it up into orbit, and then deorbit back here at the Kerbal Space Center. Some things to look for in the Vehicle Assembly Building, as well as some tips over orbiting and stuff like that. So let's get started here. Alright, so starting out to build this craft, we're going to use this small Mark 1 pod. Use your mouse wheel to move up and down. Your right mouse button will roll you around the screen, and the middle mouse button to zoom in and out. So over here in the Utility tab, grab a small battery and attach it on there. Click on the craft, drag it up, give yourself some more room. Put a small parachute on there like that. Then control, add the reaction wheel. And then in propulsion, a small fuel tank and a small engine. And we want this craft to land, so let's put some landing struts on here. Use 4x symmetry. Add them on there like that. And let's put some more parachutes on here too, so still with 4x symmetry to add just a bunch of parachutes to this thing, just because we can. Over here on the right, make sure your staging is set up before we launch this. I've already tested this thing before I made this video, so I do know that this will take off from Kerbin, but what you want to make sure whenever you're building your landers is you want to make sure it'll take off or at least hover on Kerbin if you're planning on sending it to moons around other planets. Otherwise, if it can't at least hover on Kerbin, it's not going to be able to take off from Kerbin. So we want to get this thing into space. So let's add some power. We don't need a whole lot of power. So let's see here. This is all just in the structural tab. We don't need a whole lot of stuff to get this thing going. So this is a 600 engine here on top of this double fuel tank, and then we're going to add another decoupler. Move this up a little more. Another double, and a single with a 1500. So this will give us plenty of power to get this thing up into orbit and still be able to deorbit with it. Now I'm pretty sure this craft could just take off from the launch pad as it stands, but just to be safe, let's go ahead and add some landing, or some docking clamps, I mean, right here, and that's good to go. So always double check your staging to make sure everything is accurate, and that looks good. So when these decouple, the next engine's gonna fire, and that's really all we want. This will work just fine for our purposes. I already have one saved as the tutorial craft, which has a lot more engines to it, but we don't need anything near with that much fuel. It's actually more efficient to have a lighter craft with more power than a heavier craft with more fuel and has a lot less power to it. When you try to build craft to make them efficient, you want them to be ultra lightweight but have enough power to propel them wherever you want to go with the least amount of fuel that you have to carry. But I'm going to go over that more later when I build interplanetary craft. This is just for orbiting craft, and the next one we're going to do a docking craft. So here we go. Alright, so is this using the period and comma key on my keyboard to accelerate time so it's daytime for you guys? I usually like to start my gravity turn at around 8,000 meters to 10,000 meters, and that'll be good enough to get us into orbit. I'm going to get this craft into 100,000 meter orbit, and I'm going to go over some orbiting tips for new players and advanced players that you probably may not have seen on other tutorials. So here we go. Alright, so that's close enough for an apoapsis. Now, whenever you get up to here, if you want to circularize your orbit without having to plop down maneuver nodes, one thing that you can do is just click on the apoapsis, and that makes the values for the apoapsis appear permanently on your screen for while you're on the orbital map view. Now, if you're doing rotations around a planet or something and you don't like the jostling of the planet back and forth on your screen, you can double click on the planet and it'll say focus, whatever planet you're around. And that way, no matter how fast you're rotating or what's rotating around what, the screen isn't gonna move because it's focused on Kerbin. And you'll also notice that here there's a countdown timer already set there for you for when you approach that node. So I'm going to burn this, I don't know, 20 seconds early. How much fuel we have? Yeah, we got enough fuel. We'll burn it now. So that was a little far, but I'm just going to correct that right now. So that's good enough. So this is how you can get orbital circularization without having to mouse over the darn thing, every time you want to see the values. You can just click on your periapsis and apoapsis and you can see both values on the screen at all times. So that's really helpful if you didn't already know that. Now you'll probably wind up using this every single time you go for a circularization burn. So that's good. We've achieved orbit. This thing is basically out of fuel. Doesn't have any fuel left. But I'm just going to use that little sliver that's left in here, 7 or 8, for our deorbit burn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to deorbit our spacecraft at the Kerbal Space Center. Now, I've practiced this a couple of times, but I haven't been able to actually land inside of the Space Center complex. But I do have a flag marked down there for a Easter egg if you guys haven't already found it. Go ahead and check that out. There's a lot of Easter eggs in this game, even on Kerbin itself, so fly around and see which ones you guys can find. I know where they are, I just haven't, spent the time to go out there and find them. There is one that's kind of hidden up here in the mountains, too. I haven't been able to find that one yet, but I've been looking for it. So here we go, I'm just going to accelerate time. You can notice because the focus is on Kerbin, our screen isn't moving around the focus of our spacecraft. It's staying dead center while Kerbin rotates. It's really nice. So when we approach the side, probably gonna burn this close to periapsis, but not on periapsis. Probably gonna burn right here. I know pretty much where I want to get this thing, even though I can't see it. Yeah, so there's all of our fuel. Not a whole lot there. Alright, so right there is where I was aiming for, so hopefully that'll put us down at the Kerbal Space Center. We're going to re-enter the atmosphere somewhere in this area. So that might actually be a little too much, but we'll see. I have fuel in this engine, so this is a super lightweight craft. If I do need to use the fuel to do some sort of correction, I have that fuel available. And because we have the extra reaction wheel on here, this thing's really nimble, so it can rotate around really quick. But lightweight and powerful is always better than heavy and slow and inefficient. So I just used a little bit of fuel there, and I already changed the trajectory a lot because there's, very low mass to this thing. So here we go. We're gonna try to deorbit right at the Kerbal Space Center. Alright, so there we've entered the atmosphere, and we're not going to get re-entry effects for a little while here yet. Yeah, it might land at this Space Center, not sure. If it's out to sea, I'll just slow down, no big deal. I'll flip around here. So now I'm pointed towards retrograde. Oh man, it might actually be way out there from the Space Center. That's not good. I'm gonna burn now in a second. Prevent from landing in the ocean. I don't want to land out that far. Yeah, it's gonna land in the water. Crap. It's not gonna make it. Maybe if I burn north. Might be able to actually flip the craft around. Oh, nope. Damn it. Oh well. Miscalculated the re-entry there, but that's fine. It would have landed there properly. But I can still revert the flight. So if you land on the ground, that craft will land just fine. Test your vehicles at the launch pad before you go and do your landings. These landing legs I like to land at 10 meters a second or less. If you go over that, you risk damage to the craft. The reason I have so many parachutes on here is so we can get our deceleration down that far, otherwise you run the risk of ripping things off of your vehicle if you have anything directly on the pod. So keep that in mind as well. You can use rockets for assisted landings if you need, but yeah, so that's orbiting. Hope you guys learned a little bit out of orbital maneuvers, always trying to land your craft on ground if possible. Water landings are never a good idea unless you're coming back to Kerbin, and in which case if I was able to actually rip this pod off of all of this other stuff, it would be okay to land in the water, but it didn't look like that would have been the case there. So yeah, so let's now go on to orbital docking. So I already have, well, I think I already had a ship ready. I guess I don't anymore. Yeah, it's gone. So I'll have to remake it real quick. I can just do it here. So I'm going to show you guys how to dock a small payload craft, and then in the next video I'm going to go over a heavy payload docking, because there are some very different things that you have to calculate. So here I'm just going to make a quick unmanned docking craft and get it up there. So you can follow along here if you want to make a craft that's very easy to dock for docking practice. If you're not very good at docking yet, this will help you. So the method is the exact same launch vehicle that I had on our orbital ship that I just built for you guys, only this time it's an unmanned version with RCS attached to it, so we can do a dock. So it's always a good idea to have both these single fire thrusters and the rotational thrusters, and I'm going to place these around the center mass instead of directly on the center mass, because really the center mass of this whole part that we're going to dock is right below the SAS module, or kind of on the SAS module, and as long as your RCS ports are pretty even around your center mass, you'll be fine. This should do the job just fine. I'm not even going to put docking clamps on this thing because I know it's lightweight enough it'll be able to handle it. So let's just move that around there like that. Save this thing as tutorial 2 since I already have one. And let's go. Alright, so I'm going to do a 100,000 meter orbit, and then I'm going to have to launch the second one to get it up there and dock it. So here we go. Alright, so that's good enough for our purposes here. We have 100,000, 101,000, perfect at 101,000. That never happens. And got plenty of fuel on this little craft. Even if you can't see it, it's there, it's ready to go, ready to dock. So let's go ahead and go back to our space center so we can launch number 2. Alright, so whenever you want to do an intercept, you always want to set your target for whatever your target might be. So there we go, we have a circularized orbit. We are off by 0.3. So I'm going to do my inclination change over on this end. So you always want to get your inclination right before you go and do any other orbital maneuvers. Let's see, wrong way. And that's for any target, whether you're doing an intercept, going to another planet, whatever, you always want your inclination to be the first thing that you adjust. So by double clicking on Kerbin, it now prevents my screen from rotating around a whole bunch while I'm moving my ship around here, which is always nice. Yeah, by clicking on periapsis and apoapsis again, that brings them up on screen permanently. So 0.0 is what you're looking for. And let's see, where is our target? I have so much stuff up here, it's hard to tell. Exit. Is that our target? No. Gosh, I don't even see it. Oh, there it is. I think. Yeah, so it's that one. So it's ahead of us, which means we want to catch up to it, so we need to be moving faster than our target. So in order to do that, we're gonna have to bring our periapsis and apoapsis in, but not by too much. So there's our problem right there. That apoapsis is too high, so we're gonna actually burn at periapsis. And we really don't need maneuvers. If you can click on your apoapsis and periapsis, you can just kind of judge where you need to burn your prograde and retrograde just by eyeballing it. I know it's hard to see what's going on here with all these things orbiting around Kerbin. I'm going to clean some of that up at some point, but bear with it here. So we're going to bring that in. So we're going to bring that into 90,000. So we still have 0.0, which is perfect. And our apoapsis is at 99, so we're going to want to bring that in as well. So if your target is ahead of you, in order to speed up, you want your orbit to be inside of your target orbit, because that means you're orbiting faster than it is. But if your target is behind you, then you need to slow down, so you want to do the opposite of that and actually make your orbit larger than your target orbit. Alright, so there now we have a apoapsis and periapsis that is smaller than our target. Now you can only do so much time acceleration here while the objects are within certain limits. So in order to accelerate more, I'd have to be 120,000 meters, and I think the next one is like 250,000 meters away from each other to accelerate faster. So I'm just gonna see how long this would take here. It's orbiting all right. I don't really want to do this any faster for those of you that are new to docking, because more than likely this is what you're gonna get. I could do this faster and bring it in a whole lot more and then do really quick maneuvers, but I really don't have a whole lot of fuel in this craft, so although it is efficient, it does move fast. I just want to do this kind of normally. What else can I talk about? You'll get the same sort of encounter nodes whenever you're going to other planets. Otherwise, you'll get something that has a encounter, and you'll get a new, I believe it's periapsis at the planet. Might be apoapsis, I don't know, but you just want that to be, you know, in the some 100,000s of meters mark. You don't really want to hit the planet unless that's what you're going for and you don't have enough fuel for circularization. And you just want to be within 100,000 to 400,000 meters is usually what I like to do when I'm doing planetary encounters. But we'll do that in a later episode when we take other things more in depth. So this is quite cluttered because I have a lot of things going on here. I actually have Big Hoss, which is my Helios orbital solar station up there, which I'll show off in a later showcase. Kerbin Fuel Depot is a refueling station that I put up, but I plan on making improvements to that in the future. I have a rescue station with good old Bill, Bob, and Jeb. I will be deorbiting that shortly. And then finally I have a tactical satellite here that's just orbiting the planet. So that was my first satellite that I put into orbit around Kerbin. Probably going to draw it out further just as a tutorial on how to do a geosynchronous orbit for that satellite, because that's probably what it should be doing. So if I put that in a geosynchronous orbit above the Kerbin area, which has that flag deployed there, then that would probably be a little bit better, just so there's not so much clutter. Big Hoss, I'm happy with where it is at right now. But yeah, I know this is tedious watching this thing go around in a circle, so you can skip ahead if you would like. I can't unfortunately go any faster than this, but this is more than likely what you're gonna get. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause it here and bring it in when we are ready for the intercept. Alright, so here we are, we're back, we're ready for our intercept. They've gotten closer, but before we actually do our intercept, I want to go over one thing that I like to do as part of docking. Not really necessary for craft of this size, but good practice nonetheless. So what you'll notice is whenever you're orbiting anything, you're always going to spin around. So to stop this for docking purposes, we don't want to have to calculate any sort of spin or anything. So I usually like to point my craft, or the docking ports on it, at perfect normal or anti-normal, or north and south, whichever you prefer to call it, just because whenever you come in, you don't have to worry about this craft turning as it orbits. It's going to remain pointing directly up and down. It'll just rotate around a little bit. So this is usually easier when you come in for docking, because you can come in just right from below it. You can look up at your craft like this and you can see exactly how aligned you are. If you're not using mods like me, then that's the best way to really go about doing it. And I'll show you how it's especially helpful when I do a dock with really large craft. That'll be later. So there we go, we can see our target there 30 kilometers away. So I'm going to reset my target. And we have an intercept up here that is 16 kilometers apart. So I'm just going to speed up to that intercept. And now we can see we overtake it later, but we don't want to overtake it, we want to dock with it. So I'm gonna try to speed up time till about right here where I'm right on top of my craft. That looks good. So we're 9.7 kilometers away. So let's see. Why do I not have control? Oh, for the love of God. Well, we have run out of power, which is just peachy. Unbelievable. I didn't think this would be a problem with these lighter craft. Oh, there we go. This one has power. Okay. So the other one may have run out of power, but this one for some reason still has juice. So I'm going to use this one for docking purposes. I do apologize for the mess up. I did not put any solar panels or anything on this other craft. I don't think I'll be able to rotate it even with RCS. Nope. Well, we're just gonna have to dock like this, so unfortunately I can't do the vertical docking that I usually do with this, but I will be able to do that with other craft. The larger vehicle that I'll be doing. So set as target. So there's a target, so now we're going to burn towards our target by finding it here on the nav ball. Just gonna burn. And what you want to do, I know that seems fast, 73 meters a second to target, but what you want to do is you want to get your prograde marker right on top of your purple target marker, and you want to keep it there. And the way you keep it there is by finding your retrograde to slow down, and then if you like burn above it, then you can push it in the direction you want to on the ball. So right there, it's like right on top of each other, which is really good. And because this craft is so lightweight, it's really hard to see, it's going to be able to slow down pretty fast. So I'm not really worried about that 50 meters a second to target until I get within, 1 to 2 kilometers here. So now I need to slow down. I need to push it towards the target, so I'm going to burn over here, and I'm doing all this without any orbital maneuvers, and this is how you'll have to do it whenever you do your encounters by eyeballing it. So that's looking good, closing in fast. So 13.7 is fine for this little craft. Ideally, you wouldn't want to be going this fast with larger craft, but this is okay, I'll still be able to stop. So you just want to wait. I usually like to get within about 100 meters before I get too worried about how fast I'm going. That's counting down sort of quickly, but not too bad. So now we're at 1.8, which is pretty good. I'm finally coming out on the light side of the planet, which is also nice. So 0.5 is perfect. You don't want to be going any faster than that. Find your docking port on your target vehicle and click as Set to Target. And now we're going to switch on over to RCS by hitting R on the keyboard. As we come in here, we're going to want to kill all our velocity, so I'm using N. Wow, that's really powerful. Such a lightweight craft. Okay. Gotta kind of find my directional keys here. Oh my gosh. Alright, this might be a little challenging with the controls as they are. Let's see. Find it here. Go that way. Whoa. I bumped it. Oh, wonderful. So now it's spinning. But yeah, this thing is super, super lightweight, which is not good. I'm going to try to stop this thing's spin by interacting with it here ever so gently, if possible. It's going to be kind of hard to do this now. Stop. It's just twirling out of control. This might be a little tricky, but I might be able to dock with it. I don't know. Ooh, Alright, it's not ideal, but it's also not too bad. Alright. Although it is spinning rather uncontrollably. Oh, this is not good. Let's see. Where are my controls? There we go. Alright, so let's see. Okay. There we go. There we go. Now my controls are good. So you want to make sure your RCS controls are actually what they're supposed to be whenever you try to do this. You can switch over to docking mode, but I usually just like to use the translation controls for such a thing. This is gonna be very, very difficult. I've never docked such small craft when they're spinning like this. Crap. It's just spinning all over the place. Crap. No. If I could just stop the spin somehow, this wouldn't be all that bad. It also doesn't help that all controls are inverted. At least inverted for me. I don't know how you guys feel about having pushing left and it goes right. Oh boy. Eh. Oh, come on. There we go. So, by far the most difficult dock ever, but it worked. It shouldn't have worked, but it worked. Alright, so what I was saying before is you should have it pointed like this, because then you don't have to worry about any spin or anything, and when you dock you can come in right below it, and these docking clamps will engage automatically. So I actually just want to see if I can do this again. I should be able to. So activate that, just gently touching our RCS. So we got 33, so not a whole lot. I used a lot of RCS on that actually. So I'm gonna reset that as target, and now I'm gonna go back up towards it. So I know this is kind of cheating for all intents and purposes of a tutorial by just going directly up into it again, but I can show you what I mean a little better here. So you really want to try never to bump it like I did. That was a horrible, horrible accident that could end any docking attempt in failure before you even start. So this is the ideal docking situation here. So 1 meter a second is a bit fast, but this darn thing is so lightweight, it's really hard to adjust. So you want to make sure you're aligned like that, and then they automatically dock like that. And the speed of which it goes will vary for different craft. So if you have a really heavy craft, the clamps will take a little while before they actually dock, but That worked out pretty good for the second go. You can tell it's not perfectly aligned here because it's rotated differently, so check that before you do actually do your dock. But that's, yeah, that's docking. The most difficult dock I've ever had to do, a rotating spacecraft, but it ended in success, which is what you want. So I believe that's the empty one, so that one's full. Fuel transfer, again, just right click on any tank, hold Alt, right click on another tank, transfer all the fuel out of it. I'm just going to transfer all the fuel out of these tanks to deorbit this thing and blow it up because it has annoyed me. There we go, and shut down engine. Control from here. And now after you have any spacecraft docked, you can always rename it by right-clicking here, hitting Rename Vessel, and then you can rename it and change its class. So we are going to crash this thing, and it is not a probe, it is a ship. So that's how you do that right there, and then hit OK. And there you go, now this thing is a ship named Crash. And we don't have a target anymore, but we are going to deorbit from here. And if you don't want to use fuel from tanks of docked ships, you always want to disable fuel cross feed by clicking this box here when you right click on any one of your docking ports, and that will prevent fuel from other tanks from being used by whatever engine you're firing off of. I don't think it works for RCS. You actually have to click on the RCS tank and then click that to disable it. See, right now it's using it's using fuel from that tank even though I'm firing that engine. And I don't care about landing in the ocean. This thing is just gonna blow up anyways. But yeah, the RCS translation controls on your keyboard. I should probably say this without the engines firing, but the RCS controls on your keyboard are just your H and N to move forward and backward there, and then I and K to move up and down, and J and L to move right and left, and then of course E and Q is rotation. So that's really all there is to it. Docking is not that hard if your craft is properly outfitted for the task. If it is not, then you need to go and make adjustments. So that's that. Only use your RCS for docking, otherwise it's just a waste. You don't even need it on your craft if you're not going to be using your craft for docking. You should have all of your regular movement, as you can see here, controlled with just your SAS modules. So that way you don't even need to pack RCS on your vessel, because this thing already rotates and works with just the pure SAS capabilities. Yeah, there you go. Let's see, where are we gonna crash land? Over there. Excellent. Just actually gonna speed up towards that area. So all I did there was just use up all the monopropellant. So now we're not even going to slow down. We are going to crash fast. A nice little explosion. So there you go. That's orbital docking in the hardest way possible to do it, and some orbital maneuvers. Hopefully you guys found this tutorial helpful. Let's see. What else? I guess the next tutorial I'm going to go over how to build interplanetary ships that I've been working on, some things I've learned, testing phases for different stages of your rockets, and the best way to really go about moving from planet to planet. So stay tuned for that, and see you guys next time.